We're back, we're live. Gee whiz, it's Monday here on ThinkTech. We're having a ThinkTech Talks with Rachel Orange of SOWEST. She's the data manager there. Actually, I should be more specific. She's with HURL, which is not specifically, is part of SOWEST. It's the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory. And I want to talk to her about it. Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here. So tell us the relationship of SOWEST, Manoa, and HURL. You know, what kind of universe are we talking about?
SOWEST stands for the School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology. So it's a school within the University of Hawaii, and HURL is the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, is within SOWEST.
You're much more than a data manager. That sounds so data and administrative. It isn't really like that for you.
Sometimes.
You're a scientist, aren't you?
I'm a scientist at heart. I have a master's degree in oceanography, also from Manoa. So I'm very familiar with SOWEST and the kinds of things that happen.
You've been there how long?
20 years.
Oh my God, you look like you're 20.
I did my
You started at birth.
I did my undergraduate degree also at Manoa in biology, and I worked for an oceanographer during that time. So I kind of literally got my feet wet from day one, and then transitioned into the master's program after getting my bachelor's in oceanography. And then when I finished my master's, I was fortunate enough to get a job at HURL. So I've literally been in the same building on campus at for 20 years.
Are they keeping the building well? I mean,
For now,
maintaining
yeah.
it, you know, it's very important.
They just redid our AC system. So,
okay,
yeah.
well, that's a good sign. Where is the building?
It's the Marine Science Building, so it's kind of right in the heart of SOWEST. There's a brand new building called Post that's right next to us. So we're right next to East-West Road.
Okay, right. So you go up the East-West Road. You make a left pretty quick.
Yep, and that's
the
us right
SOWEST
there.
building is there, and
Yes.
you're there. Okay. But you're not spending that much time there on the campus, or are you?
I am personally. So within HURL, we have about 15, 17 people employed by HURL. The science and admin types are on campus at and our submersible operations crew is most of the time out at Mackay Research Pier. And that's where they maintain the 2 deep diving manned submersibles that we operate. We've also been involved with helping launch the new SOWEST remotely operated vehicle, and that's at Snug Harbor.
Okay. Tell me about Snug Harbor. The name sounds so inapposite to what it actually looks like and feels like.
You know, I should probably double check this reference, but I heard somewhere that almost every main port has a harbor called Snug that just basically means you're home safe.
Okay.
So I think it's just one of those generic terms. Snug Harbor is down by, it's off of Sand Island Access Road.
I know this because I was there recently, and I'll tell you why. As you're going toward the Sand Island Bridge, it's the last turn on the left.
Yes.
And it looks like a industrial area. You know, you'd swear there are big industrial ships and facilities there, and yet it is the university.
Yes.
It's great to know that the university has such a serious harbor facility right here in Hawaii. It's one of those things.
And I think it's going to be shifting with all the harbor reorganizations. I think we're going to be moving to a slightly different location in the somewhat near future.
Don't let them take anything away from you.
Well, the main things that are housed there at Snug Harbor are the University of Hawaii's 2 research vessels.
Yes.
There's the Ka'imi Kai o Kanaloa.
Of course.
Or KOK.
Ka'imi Kai
o
Kanaloa.
Kanaloa. The heavenly searcher of the seas.
Yes, I've been there, been on that. And it's a very pleasant ship.
It really, really is. And that vessel was specifically modified and designed to be able to launch our submersibles.
It was
so there's a big A-frame on the back that is set up to be able to lift up the Pisces 4 or the Pisces 5.
What are they?
These are our human-occupied vehicles. HOV. So the kind of common term people will say manned sub, but the more accurate terminology is human-occupied vehicle.
Okay, so Snug Harbor, KOK.
Okay, there's also the...
Ka'imi Kai o Kanaloa.
Yes.
Okay.
And there's also the Kilo Moana, which is the other...
That's the second vessel.
That's the second vessel.
Is it smaller or bigger?
It's totally different.
Yeah.
It's somewhat similar in size, at least in length it's similar, but it's much wider. The KM is a swath vessel, so it's kind of like a catamaran. And I was just on it a couple of weeks ago, and the inside of it feels like a maze. It's
Big.
It's big, but it's because it's a catamaran, you have to kind of, there's only certain places where you cross over and you go up and down, and there's no direct lines anywhere. It's
So you
in
like
and
the
out.
KOK better?
I'm more familiar with the KOK.
Okay.
They're both great vessels.
So now the KOK was actually, wasn't it a European ship at one time? And they
actually
did some
think
serious
We did.
reorganization of that ship.
I'm not sure it was European. I think they actually
wait, I
think
got
it
it.
was
Louisiana.
Mississippi, yeah.
Mississippi.
It was in Louisiana, but it was on the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
It was a riverboat.
Riverboat.
And
yeah.
they cut it in half, put something in the middle, they added this big A-frame on the back, they did a whole bunch of renovations to
Yeah,
it.
just for the university.
And specifically for these subs,
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah. Now the subs are not small. I mean, you could fit like maybe 3 people in these subs.
You do fit 3 people. So the command sphere, the part where the people go into, is 7 feet in diameter. So it's actually not much bigger than a couple of people sitting around this table.
Well, that
if you're
suggests
sitting
we should
inside,
do a show
right?
from the sub. What do you think, Rachel?
That would be pretty cool.
What an idea.
That would be pretty cool. But then there's a lot of other kind of ancillary equipment around the subs in order to operate it. You need basically you need ballast. You need things to make it float. You need buoyancy added to it,
Yeah.
and you have a lot of other things. So the sub itself is about the size of this room. It's like the size of a large van.
Yes. And it's got all kinds of armature things. Armature may be the wrong word. It's got fingers
It has
and
2,
arms.
we call them manipulator arms.
Manipulator arms, yes.
Yep, it's basically a robotic arm that can be used to pick things up off the seafloor or to deploy instrumentation,
Yeah.
whatnot. Depending on, so we do all different types of science with the subs. It really depends on the researcher that's with us that we're working with, but you might be looking at deep sea corals or sponges. You might be looking at undersea volcanoes. You might be looking at algae even. And all these different things might modify what you take with you depending on what your objective is.
It sounds like what do you call a transformer? You know what I mean? The toy.
Right. We don't really transform that much.
But it opens and closes with arms, and it's got a big basket in the front. You
Yep.
put the things in the basket and all this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what's remarkable about these HOVs,
Yes.
HOVs, is that they are old.
Yes, they are. They're older than me, in fact.
Wow, that's saying something.
That's saying something. So the height
I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean in a good way.
the height of the boom in the industry of building deep diving subs was in the late 60s, early 70s. And that's when these subs were built. They were part of a whole series. They were actually built in Canada, the ones that we operate. But we've maintained them and worked with them so much that probably the only real original piece of the submersible that hasn't been replaced or significantly modified in some way is the sphere itself. And that's the really core of a deep diving submersible, is you need to have a command sphere that you can trust to take you to 2,000 meters.
You don't want it to collapse on you. This is
Precisely.
having a really
that would
bad
be bad.
day.
That would be bad.
Yeah.
So, in fact, as part of our certification with ABS, the American Bureau of Shipping, we have to completely disassemble the subs, check everything for corrosion, repaint the sphere, double check everything once every 3 years, and then put it all back together again.
That's why they look so good, even though they're old.
Right. Is that we maintain them very
And
well.
there aren't many of them in the world.
No, there's not. And so there's going to be a couple of qualifications in here. But if you're talking research submersibles that can go deeper than about 1,500 meters, so talking deep ocean stuff, there's only about 8 in the
whole
world.
All continents, everywhere. Every school,
Everywhere.
every research institution.
We
anywhere.
have 2 of them.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Hold on to them.
We'd like to. We'd like to. We're trying.
Yeah, why? Is there some risk?
Yeah, they keep trying to eliminate us, and we refuse to go away.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah. So, these things could be useful in anything. And I remember not too long ago, they were used for something for the Navy.
Yeah.
Can we talk about it here on the air?
Yes, we can.
Okay, what was it?
So some people might have seen in the news that After World War II, around in that time, a bunch of stuff was dumped offshore, including unexploded munitions and mustard gas.
Mustard gas.
You know,
It's
kinds
good
of
with salami,
bombs
pastrami.
and nasty stuff.
And it's close to Oahu. It's
Relatively.
not far away. Yeah.
A couple miles offshore,
Ooh.
right? And you know, when we're talking about wanting to do anything else offshore, like say, you know, there's been talk about a deep sea power cable, for example. If we were going to actually dredge something and lay a cable on the bottom of the ocean, you'd really like to not dredge up some mustard bombs while you're doing that,
No,
right?
no.
That would be bad.
No.
So we were contracted by the Navy, and I think the Army was involved too, to basically go out and survey and see where those bombs are. And there's not many other ways you can do that, but with our submersibles, we could do a very precise survey and be able to cover a large area and say exactly where these munitions are. Probably aren't going to do much with them except avoid them. As long as they aren't
you have a
disturbed,
map, you have a chart.
we have a map saying where they are.
So if I'm navigating, you know, on the bottom or near the bottom of that area, I can pull that chart out. It's public, right?
I'm not sure if that one's public or not.
But if I
I'd have
ask
to
you
check on
nicely,
you.
you'll provide it for
I
me.
think there was actually a report that was done for the state.
Okay.
So yeah, I'd have to double
Showing
check
the
on.
track. You know, I remember looking at this. I spoke to Margot
Edwards, yeah.
Margot Edwards about this. I saw her recently.
So this is a good example. Margot was the principal investigator on that project, and we were the tools. So Margot is a science leader, but she partnered with Hurl and used our tools in order to
So
carry
that's
out
the way
the
it
science.
works. You make collaborations.
Yeah.
And I'm into collaborations. I think every time you find a collaboration, you have to make a little prayer and say, thank you, God, for the collaboration.
Well, and
It's
the
good.
other end on that collaboration were the people that paid for it, because operating a deep diving submersible is not cheap.
Yes. Oh, I'm
Actually,
sure.
the vast majority of the cost, though, goes towards the ship itself. So research vessels aren't cheap.
Yes.
But I think the last I heard for us doing operations off of the KOK, it costs close to $40,000 per day. And that's with our 2 submersibles.
That's including the KOK.
That's
though.
including the KOK.
It's a big
Yes.
ship. The KOK must be
Yes.
200 feet or more.
It is. It's about
Yeah.
220 feet.
Yeah, okay.
One thing that we've done just this past year in order to reduce the cost of operations, so because funding is so hard to come by right now, is we reactivated an old way that we used to launch the subs 30 years ago, called the LRT. LRT stands for Launch Recovery Transport, and it's basically a floating platform that can be towed behind any other vessel that we want to rent. We ended up using a tugboat, a commercial tugboat. And that LRT, towed behind the tugboat with the Pisces 5 attached to it, when you get to where you're going to dive, you use divers to help descend it to 60 feet underwater, so you're away from the wave action and everything. And then they release the sub goes off, does its dive. At the end of the dive, you submerge it again, pick up the sub, bring it back to the surface.
And you use that hoist mechanism on the stern of the ship.
No, see, this is the difference.
You don't need to do that.
You don't need to do that because that
saves
ship
money.
saves money. Because that ship is very expensive. That gives us more flexibility. Like, I really like operations off the ship, but now we have an alternative so that we can still do operations, but at more like $16,000 per day, which is a lot
So
different
it's a
than
third of the price.
about a
yeah.
third of the price.
So you don't need the ship at all. Ship stays back at the dock.
Correct.
Oh, what a great idea. This is something that's happened on your watch.
Yeah, this has happened very, very recent, just this year, in fact. There's limitations. That means we're probably with LRT ops stay a little bit closer to home. So operations off of Oahu are easy,
You couldn't
maybe
go into the
inter-islands.
Western Pacific with
It'd
this.
be hard, yeah.
Yeah, because you need the
Yeah.
logistics and everything to
Right.
go there. Yeah, well, it's pretty exciting. You guys are active, you know, that's the thing. So I went down there, just to digress a little bit, I went down there about 3 weeks ago with Ian Davidson, our production manager. And we took cameras and we went to Snug Harbor and we're in the middle of all this. And we looked at the, what you call it, harbor security vehicle. That was designed by the engineering school, again in a collaboration with SOWEST, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
And you and Hurl.
That one wasn't with Hurl as much. But I happened to be down at Snug Harbor that very same day for a different purpose that we didn't hold a press conference for.
I was there at a press conference.
I know. But actually that very same day that they were showing the press how that vehicle was working, I was over on the Kila Moana, where we did an official naming ceremony for SOAS's new remotely operated vehicle. So we named it Lu'ukai.
Lu'ukai. Everything at Snug Harbor has a long Hawaiian name. Well,
Lu'ukai is manageable, right?
Lu'ukai is manageable. But, you know, we're going to try to make some sense of this when we come back from this break. That's Rachel Orange, data manager, she says, of HURL at SOAS on ThinkTech Talks. The SOAS show, if you don't mind, on Mondays at, 1 to 2 o'clock. We'll be right back after this break.
Aloha, I'm Nicole Horry for ThinkTech. For nearly half a century, the Hawaii Foreign Trade Zone No. 9 has brought the benefits of the Foreign Trade Zone program to Hawaii businesses and entrepreneurs. DBET, the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism, operates Hawaii's Foreign Trade Zone program to encourage international business and economic development. The Foreign Trade Zone's mission is to increase the amount of international trading activity in Hawaii, thereby providing employment opportunities for the residents of our island state. For more information, see ftz9.org. I'm Nicole Horry. Mahalo.
Yes, it's raising public awareness here at ThinkTech. ThinkTech Talks with Rachel Orange, data manager of HURL, the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, HURL, which is part of SOAS, the School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology.
Yes.
Which we love very dearly, and we'd like to do them at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock every Monday. So, Rachel, you know, you have these two things happening simultaneously, and they're actually unrelated. With you know, this harbor security vessel, which I was very impressed with, and in fact, we're doing an OC-16 show about that next week. And you had another one going on, another remote vehicle in the water, down in the same area. What's going on? You guys are so active. You're making history every minute. What's going on here?
Well, SOAS as a school is actually quite large, and it incorporates a lot of different research and a lot of really, really cool stuff that goes on all the time.
Well, it should. I mean, after all, Hawaii is an ocean state. Hawaii is by the sea. Hawaii should have every, you know, discipline having to do with the ocean. You know, we should have it under control. We should have brilliant people like you working on all this stuff all the time, making a world name for ourselves. You know?
We do. We do. Actually, there's some world-renowned scientists doing work within SOAS. So SOAS is actually very well recognized as a world leader in this type of thing.
We want that. So how does it work? What kinds of things, you know, does SOAS make a world name for itself in the research being done at Snug Harbor, at Mackay Engineering, out at Sea Life Park, and in Manoa, where you are?
I mean, there's a lot of different things. Within SOAS, you have the oceanography department, you have ocean engineering, you have meteorology, you have a lot of different things. Dave Carl, who's done
he's
work
a member
with
of the
Seymour.
National Academy of Science.
Yeah.
He's
So that's an
famous
example.
person.
That's an example of a famous person within SOAS, and there's many more like him. He's not the only one.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I mean, you have long history. That's why you stayed 20 years, isn't it? You want to be close to those
I don't
people.
like change. What can I say?
No, you do. Every scientist likes change, am I right? But you like to rub shoulders anyway.
Oh, it's hard to leave Hawaii. Hawaii's a great place to be, right?
Yeah, well, especially if you're in ocean science.
Yeah.
So, okay, so what does the data manager do for all this?
Well, primarily, my primary responsibility is all the data that comes back from the vehicles. So when you go down and you're doing a dive in the Pisces 5 submersible, the primary
you mentioned
thing...
Pisces 5 twice.
Yes. We also have the Pisces 4.
I know you have Pisces
Yes.
4, but you seem to favor the 5. Why is that?
Partly because we've had the 5 longer, and when you take kids to go look at both the 4 and the 5, they all like the 5 better because it's yellow. And the Pisces 5 we used this
It's
past
gray.
year, the LRT that I described to you, the platform, works with the 5, it doesn't work with the 4.
So
That's the one
more
we've
options.
used recently.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but they're both great, and actually both the Pisces 4 and the Pisces 5 are capable of going to depths of 2,000 meters. just pretty deep.
And they're both the same size. They both can
Both the
carry
same
3
size. They're very
passengers
similar.
and so
Yep.
forth.
Yep.
Okay. What color is the 4?
The 4 is white.
White. Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
But what I was saying is, so the primary data that comes back with the subs, there's a few different types of instruments that bring back data, but the most important thing that comes back is video. And I'm basically the custodian of that video, or we are as a group. That's part of what I deal with, is archiving the video and making it available when people want to use it.
Oh, we know about video here at ThinkTech.
I'm sure you
We
do.
live in a world of
Sure you do.
video.
But then I also get to be the person that gives tours to school groups and helps maintain the website and helps with reports. You know, yeah, everyone has to do a little bit of everything.
So connection. The web, I think I knew this before, the website has at least some of the video.
Yes, it does.
And if I want to see what the Pisces 4 and 5 have been doing, all I got to do is go on your website, which is?
It's www.soest.hawaii.edu/hurl in all caps.
Okay.
So hurl.
Hurl.
And believe it or not, if you do a Google search for hurl, we're pretty close to the top of it, along with a bunch of other videos you probably don't want to watch.
They know you there. Yeah. Okay, so on your website will be, I've seen this, videos of what is visible out of the nose of these two
Yes.
submersibles.
We also on the website have, we have an example image of every single organism we've ever seen. And we have it set up taxonomically, like, so our biologist at Hurl spent a lot of time and effort really organizing this, because we see some animals that you can't see in any other way.
Thousands of feet down. Yeah.
And so we have a whole gallery of the animals, and they're set up like an identification key, so that so it's mainly set up towards scientists, but there's cool stuff for just the layperson to browse through as well.
Oh, I want to go. I wish we could go now, but we don't have a computer right here on the table. So what else? So you're cataloging the videos. Do you process the videos? A big question now. Do you actually edit the videos too?
We make edits for special occasions. So, for example, at the SOEST Open House just a little over a week ago, I did a highlight video showing what we did last year.
Just to demonstrate to
basically.
people.
Yeah, just as a PR thing to show people what we do. In terms of the general archive, though, we don't modify the video in any way.
Non-destructive.
Yeah, we try to keep it the same, but one thing we do that is relatively unique that almost no one else is doing, there's only a few people that do, is that we actually log it for the organisms and the substrate and what's going on in the video. That way we can do a database search and say, I want to find every time this particular fish was seen.
Sure.
And we can do that. A lot of people
So
who
you have to know. What's
Luckily,
on
I'm not the
screen.
person that does that, but we have someone
we
that
can bring
does.
somebody else
Yeah.
in to watch it
Yeah.
and then tell you at foot number or second number 1.
Correct.
This is what shows
Correct.
on the screen.
And that makes it a much more valuable resource than if it was just a bunch of tapes on a shelf.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Because we can extract information
Take
from
a
it
picture out of it,
without
you know,
even looking at the video again. We still know what was there.
Yeah, yeah. So if I'm researching this particular organism, I can come to you and learn a lot about
Absolutely.
how that organism is.
And people have done that. We've actually had people who are doing research on something and then they come to us, they're like, I wonder if you guys have seen this before. And we give them access to our archives and they go through and look for it, and they can find stuff to supplement their real-time research based on stuff that was done before.
Yes, but you're talking as if these guys are across the East-West Center Road. Not true. These guys could be from anywhere in the world.
Somewhat. If they're anywhere in the world, we don't have it so that they can search it all online right now. We have over 8,000 hours worth of video, and we don't have a good way of having that all accessible on the World Wide Web. So they kind of would have to go through us, and we would help them find what they need and extract what they want.
We can help you, actually, Rachel.
We can talk about that.
About video.
I know you do. We actually recently, just within the last year as well, got an incredible donation from HP and Intel that is a storage server. But right now, the way that it's hooked up, it's not hooked up to be able to connect out to the world. It's only internal at UH. But even that makes our data and our video much more at our fingertips so that we can help people with it more easily.
Okay, this is really important. So you're cataloging the video. You're probably, well, you're putting the reference to that particular organism. Let's call it SJ67. Okay. I don't know, unless you have some long name for it. Give me the name of an organism.
Let's talk about, how about Ehu or Onaga?
Onaga, okay.
Onaga. It's a common bottom fish, right?
Okay. So, well, no, something uncommon.
It's a tasty bottom fish.
You're making me hungry. It's lunchtime.
It's lunchtime. How about a sponge?
A sponge, okay. So you have a sponge and you catalog the footage, exactly where in the 8,000 hours of footage, but then you also put it in a database somewhere, so I can always know that it's, I can connect up with it. And what kind of database is this? Databases are also something that we do here at ThinkTech.
Right. Well, we have it in a lot of different ways. Actually, a lot of stuff we do is still just in Excel. We have a lot of Excel spreadsheets. But what we're using for our primary database for the organisms now is one that was developed by MBARI in California, the Monterey Bay Aquarium and Research Institute.
So this is dedicated to this kind of research.
This type, for this type of video logging.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's set up like we have in there a library of all the organisms that we might see, and so that you can link to them. Because one of the things that happens, Jay, that you might not come across in your video cataloging is, so say this particular sponge that we logged it as being sponge species 5, right? Or maybe we just called it orange sponge or whatever it is.
And named after you.
Maybe.
They named a sponge after you.
But then maybe a year later, they got a sample of that sponge to the appropriate expert, and they figured out that it really wasn't what we thought it was. Now they're going to call it something else.
Yeah.
This happens all the time.
Interesting. Okay.
There's the organisms that we see in the deep sea, no one's seen them before. Some of them don't have names yet. They're brand new. And then those names might change. And so this type of database is set up to be able to deal with those name changes.
Do a kind of global replace.
For only the ones that,
it says orange sponge, but it's really chartreuse or whatever.
Right.
And
but maybe we called a bunch of sponges orange sponge, but really there was the yellowish orange sponge and the orangish yellow sponge, and there were two different species, and we might have to separate that out.
Yeah. You got to do this.
Yes.
So then you create a database that will help people, and they can not only know that it's at foot 3 out of 8,000 hours of video, but they can also know how many times.
Yes.
Right, and
where.
And where exactly where.
Right, because sometimes you might see a fish that is known in the South Pacific that has never been seen in Hawaii, and that's interesting too. So that's what we would call a new record. So it's a known species, but has never been seen here before. That's also significant.
So you're really examining the ocean floor. You're seeing the ocean floor maybe as very few people in the world see, as very few academicians and researchers see. And digression again, if you don't mind, what do you think about the ocean floor? I mean, our view of the ocean has changed, especially because the oceans have been tampered with, they've been desecrated, they've been fished out. Terrible things have happened to the oceans in our lifetimes, even in your young lifetime.
And it's not over yet.
Oh, it's getting worse.
I think that we should make an effort to know as much as we can about what's down there as possible. And what we offer at Hurl is literally a vehicle to do that, a tool that enables us to help see the ocean floor. There's going to be, so you talked about some of the things that have happened already to the ocean, right? Going forward, there's probably going to be a lot of mineral extraction and mining of the ocean. It's very possible in the future.
That's going to have all kinds of secondary effects.
Who knows? Like, wouldn't you like to know what the ocean floor looked like before trying to extract something out of it? Like, even just basic stuff, because some places might be more, might be able to handle it better than others. But you need scientists to help do a baseline survey to know it's there before you take it all away.
Is that happening now? Are companies extracting from the base?
I think it might be happening at a small scale now, but many people are thinking that it's coming soon, that it will be happening.
Yeah, and I know my first reaction is, I shouldn't do that. My second reaction is, well, in a world of shrinking,
resources
shrinking
and-
commodities, we really, in minerals and whatnot, maybe we have to do it.
Well, and maybe there's an environmentally sound way to do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But in order to design an environmentally sound way to do it, you need to know it's there. And that's the first step. I mean, it's an often repeated quote that we know more about outer space than we do about the ocean floor. It's true.
It's really sad, actually.
It's true.
On the ocean floor, we're much more interdependent with the ocean than we are with outer space. And it has a greater effect on us. And therefore, SOEST and HURL and what you're doing is going to be increasingly relevant in the future.
Absolutely.
Stay in this area.
I'm trying.
At least for the next 40
Trying.
seconds, because now we're going to take a short break. That's Rachel Orange. She's staying in this area, at least for a while. She's the data manager of HURL, the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, which is part of SOEST, the School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology at UH, and Snug Harbor, and Mackay Pier. And she knows about what's under there. We'll be right back while she stays here for the next minute. Aloha, I'm Jay Fidell, founder of ThinkTech Hawaii. We are a digital media nonprofit that covers things that matter to tech, energy, diversification, globalism, and progress for our state, the state of Hawaii. We broadcast on community television and on Oceanic Cable Channel 16. We also stream our shows and interviews live on the internet as both radio and video, and of course we post them here on YouTube. We collaborate with the Hawaii Venture Capital Association to present monthly luncheon programs on subjects of interest to the business community, and we write for the Honolulu Star Advertiser. ThinkTech works hard to raise public awareness in Hawaii. Check out our website, thinktechhawaii.com. and come to our YouTube channel, ThinkTech Hawaii. We hope you support our mission and that you like our work. I'm Jay Fidell. Mahalo. We're back. We're live. We're here on ThinkTech Talks on a Monday in the 1 to 2 block with the SOEST show and Rachel Orange, the data manager of HURL, the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, which is part of SOEST, the School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology. And I'm Jay Fidell, and I'm having a great time examining the ocean floor with Rachel. It amazes me, Rachel, that we live in this island, and there are people out there surfing every day and sailing boats and fishing and sort of touching the ocean because we have to. We live in, and years ago it was even much more the same, but we don't. The average Joe, we don't know that much about the ocean floor. You guys are really at the cutting edge. You know about the ocean floor. We should all know about the ocean floor. This is our thing. We're an island state.
Actually, I think if you'd ask any scientist, they'd say that we don't know more than we know.
I would have to agree with that.
So,
All
even
right.
the people who are on the cutting edge, the more you know there is to know.
Yes. Isn't it great to be
That's
there, though?
philosophical, but
Yeah. Well, I think we've established here, just in the four corners of this discussion, how important it is to get out there and look at the ocean floor.
Yes.
Not only, for the sake of academia, but for the sake of industry and society in general. We really need to know, especially when we're making incursions on the ocean daily. So how is this funded?
Well, HURL has been in existence since 1980. So we have a number of years where we've done a lot of work, and the vast majority of our funding has come from NOAA, the National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration.
I was in the Coast Guard, and for
Yeah.
a short time, NOAA was going to take over the Coast Guard.
Right.
Instead, we were in the
Right. They have the
Treasury
NOAA
Department.
Corps, right?
Huh?
They have the NOAA Corps.
Right.
There's NOAA vessels that are, yeah.
That's well. That was
Yeah.
the thing. We were going to become part of NOAA, but the last minute they changed it from NOAA to the Department of Transportation, and now, of course, it's Homeland Security.
Because NOAA's in Department of Commerce, which surprises people.
Yes, it does.
Right. And I forget the details, but there's some political reason why that is.
By definition.
By definition. But it was like the people at the top, one guy didn't like another guy, and so they separated them by different
Don't you love
departments.
it? But NOAA is a scientific organization.
Yes.
So
So the vast majority of our funding has come from NOAA. In recent years, that funding has been in jeopardy. We've managed to hang on there in light of there used to be, I think, 8 centers like ours. We were part of the National Undersea Research Program. called NERP. NERP has now been eliminated completely. That's
These are
awful,
really
right?
wonderful acronyms.
Wonderful
Hurl,
acronyms,
NERP,
Hurl,
you name
NERP.
it, yeah.
Well, but the National Undersea Research Program was eliminated from NOAA's budget a little over a year ago.
Okay, why?
You know, big answer or small answer. I mean, I think the big overarching reason is there's less and less money to go around for research science at the national level. And so it's all cutting into the pool that we've been relying on. And we're not the only ones. There's a lot of other programs that are in jeopardy
Is this
as well.
part of sequestration? Is it part of the cliff? Is it part of all
It's even
that
bigger than that.
hubbub in Washington?
That stuff doesn't help. It makes asking for money even harder because they're like, nobody has any money. What's different about
Don't
you?
even ask.
Right?
Yeah,
Don't
yeah,
even
yeah.
ask. But it predates that. You know, part of the excuse is they spent a lot of money on weather satellites, which are important too. But you know, so they spent a couple $100 million on weather satellites meant that they couldn't send $2 million to Hawaii to operate our subs.
We should know more about space than we know about. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I think it's a big national priorities thing. There's been less and less money in the national budget for science, and that's within NOAA. But also, I think NSF funding has been less, and there's been a lot of science funding across the board has been in jeopardy.
Medical research too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Research of all kinds.
Research of all kinds.
So you know, just to hesitate and do another digression, if you don't mind. What is it? You know, a great country deserves great research. And music and art too.
Yes, absolutely.
But you know, we're not spending. This is for John Kennedy. Huh? We're not spending the kind of money we used to spend on all kinds of research.
Yes.
We're doing less research. I'll bet you 5. If I went to Beijing, I would find they're doing more and more research.
They are.
So what's wrong with us? What's happening here?
You tell me. I think it's a hard question, and a big part of it, I mean, I think that we as voters and we as citizens want to ask our representatives to fund science. I mean, that's kind of a simple answer, but it's a really big part of it. We as citizens should demand science and say that we want our children to be able to grow up and be scientists and to be at the forefront of research, because I think that those jobs are going to go overseas. And that's just my own personal speculation, but I see this with my friends and colleagues across the board, that there's less and less funding for science, and I think it's going to affect us as a nation.
A couple of years ago, I had lunch with the vice mayor of Beijing. He was here.
Cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And I was trying to be friendly, and I said to him,
They have a new deep diving submersible too.
Interesting. I said to him, Mr. Vice Mayor, it's wonderful how the schools in China are offering all the science and engineering, and I understand that 29% of all of your college graduates have degrees in engineering and science. 29%. He said, well, thank you for that very nice comment, but you're wrong, Fidell. It's like 59%.
Wow. Wow.
And then people go to law school, study social sciences, do all kinds of things that have no relationship to science. They're trained in science anyway. The whole country really is trained in science. We're not doing that.
We're getting away from it. And I think that the ones that we are training in science are getting frustrated and going into other fields because there aren't as many jobs as there used to be. And that's a challenge, because we want to encourage STEM curriculum, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math, and we want to encourage our students to go into those fields. But in order for them to be successful, we need to be ready with jobs for them. And traditionally, historically, a lot of those jobs have been government funded.
Research.
So, research, yeah.
Yeah. So when you say no more research, we're not going to fund you, and don't even ask, you're really squashing the possibility of jobs, and thus the relevance of science education.
Well, and then those jobs, there's other jobs that are private funded, right? But a lot of those are going to be things that make money. They're going to be technology stuff, right? Or it's going to be mining, or it's going to be, you have a degree in
Sure.
You have a degree in geology. you can get a job for an oil company, no problem.
Cutting
right?
edge, yeah.
Do we want all of our geophysicists working for oil companies?
No.
Or do we want to have geophysicists working on research as well?
Right, for the
I
benefit
think
of
there needs to
mankind,
be
not
a
for
balance,
Kuleana,
right?
yeah.
So there's always going to be private funding, but the private funding stuff is stuff that can make a profit. Who's going to do the stuff that's basic research that may not make a profit, but might in the future? Who knows what's out there?
So is this the Congress? Is it the administration? Is it the departments within the administration? Or is it all of the foregoing?
They're probably all related. I think a big part of it is Congress. And, you know, because they set the overall numbers, right? And then the departments within make their own internal priorities. And we can all disagree about internal priorities of any individual group, but those are going to change. But the overall numbers are coming from Congress and then approved by the president. So
It's a lack of vision. Sorry, that's the way I feel about it. And I'm getting a headache over it. And my headache is recurrent whenever we have this conversation here on ThinkTech. So I need to take a short break.
all right.
Recover from my headache. That's Rachel Orange. She's data manager of HURL, the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, which is part of SOWEST, the School of Ocean and Earth Science and Technology here on ThinkTech Talks. I'm Jay Fidell. We'll be right back in 50 seconds.
I'm Bill Spencer, president of the Hawaii Venture Capital Association. We do monthly luncheon programs with ThinkTech about things that matter to Hawaii entrepreneurs, investors, and business service providers. So join us on the fourth Thursday of every month at the Plaza Club. For information about upcoming events or to join our mailing list, visit hvca.org. See you there.
Back, we're live, we're here at ThinkTech Talks. I had a little headache about government funding, but it went away largely. There is optimism here along the way. I'm with Rachel Orange, data manager with HURL, part of SOWEST, and we're here to discuss lots of things that SOWEST does. But one of the most interesting aspects of research is a phenomenon that has actually come into play fairly recently. Am I right about this? I suppose it's happened in little pieces before, but now it seems to be happening in great. You'd think that research on big projects would be left to the government because it's the only, and large universities or universities that get funds from the government, because they're the only large institutions that can handle large projects. But no, times have changed. There is a disparity in wealth in the world. And there are some people who are billions upon billions of billionaires, and they are curious too. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they get into research for the fun of it. What is happening with that?
It seems to be more and more common, and I actually think it's harkens back to an earlier time, kind of in the time of Charles Darwin, and Gregory Mendel. These were the people of a certain class of society that had luxury time to do science, right? And they would do whatever they were interested in. Then government funding allowed more broad research to go on for the benefit of all society, right? And now that government funding is shrinking, there's a lot of people that are doing really cool stuff just for fun, that have their own ROVs and they're off their own vessels, but
their own spaceships.
Their own spaceships. There's some pretty cool stuff going on at the private level, but which is great. I think it's cool that those guys are doing that, but I don't know if that stuff will then be in the public domain and available for the benefit of all of us. Right?
Yes, big question.
Some of it will be. I mean, I think a good example is the research vessel Falkor is in town right now here in Honolulu. Falkor.
Okay.
And it's operated by the Schmidt Ocean Institute.
It's a private ocean institute.
Private ocean, they're involved in Google. So it's some guys who made money with Google, and they've got their own research vessel, and they're opening up to scientists. So some of my colleagues are going to be doing some mapping in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands coming up this spring. So they're providing a vessel that's going to do some good research that's available to all of us, but it's kind of at their whim, right? So it just changes who's directing research. If you want it to be directed by a private foundation, or do you want it directed by NOAA and the National Science Foundation, or these government.
And your answer to that?
I think you get more broad stuff for the public when it comes from public funds. If government funding remains at the level that it is and keeps going in the directions that it's going, then scientists are going to be more and more reliant on looking to foundations and looking to private individuals to solicit support.
But the agenda's different then.
It might be. I think that remains to be seen, but it might be.
Yeah.
Because if you go into private industry, like, the classic thing, what did the research about cigarettes say that was funded by,
Sure.
the cigarette companies,
secret
right?
results.
They said it's no problem, right? Everything we see is fine, right? That was private research that was done, so they could do whatever they wanted with the results. They didn't have to release it. I'm not saying that private foundations are doing that. This is an extreme example. But when things are funded by the government and by public, has to be peer reviewed. We all do checks and balances on each other as a scientific community.
Better product.
And it's more transparent.
Yeah.
So maybe not better, but more transparent, more broad.
Well,
more,
but you're also more available. You're
more
accessible.
available, yes.
So there's some guy in Denmark wants to know what you're doing. It's an open book, really. But if a private guy gets involved in this research, he can find out what you're doing, but he doesn't have to tell what he's doing.
to other people, right?
It's a one-way street, and it's not as open and transparent.
And more, I think even with some of these foundations, there's more and more an appreciation for open data. So I think the scientific
When you
community.
say that, you really mean it because you're a data manager.
Yeah. But there's a lot of projects that really are trying to go with the open source model and then try to make data available worldwide across the board
That
and open
is
sharing.
a far better model, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think that will happen with some foundation funds, but like you said, they're going to direct what kind of studies they want done.
So, I mean, ideally, you take one of these very wealthy guys, and you say, you feel like doing science? Good. How about a large, contribution to SOWEST? And you can come around every day and talk to us, and we'll tell you what's going on. You can even give us your ideas.
By the way.
Yes.
We would take it.
Where's my checkbook? I just can't find it right now. But, you have, for example, among us right now, one of the richest men in the universe. You have Larry Ellison, the owner of who got a real bargain in Lanai.
Lanai, right.
God, if I only had $500 million, I know I could do a job. But he wants to establish a very large research facility there.
That's what I hear.
And is there really a Larry Ellison? I mean, he hasn't appeared just like at all.
I saw
It's like a mystery.
I saw pictures of him on Oracle, right at the sailing race.
Yeah.
I mean, he put hundreds of millions of dollars into the America's Cup, right? And they won. So they did their job.
Okay.
But I think I saw pictures of him associated with that.
Okay, so he's real.
Oh, he had a concert here. He actually did bring Stevie Wonder out. Just a couple months ago.
Okay, thank you for
Seriously.
mentioning that.
Sorry.
You see what happens. You can achieve bloody anything. So the university can't do it, but he can do it.
Right. No, I hear Larry Ellison has intentions of setting up a very large research institution on the island of Lanai. And I think the idea is someone like Larry Ellison has so much money and so many resources, he can pick and choose what scientists he wants to work with, and he'll bring them to Lanai if he wants to.
From anywhere in the world.
Or from anywhere in the world, exactly. Alternatively, someone like him could give a contribution to SOAST at large or to a unit within SOAST and help fund good research that way, but within infrastructure that's already there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, in the case of giving money, say, to SOAST, clearly, in my recollection, that's tax deductible.
Yes, it is.
The whole thing is tax deductible.
Yes.
But if I do my own research and take my own money and make a big facility, say, in Lanai, and I spend hundreds of millions, whatever it may be, on that, is that deductible?
My guess is that they would probably set up a foundation that would be a 501c3
And the foundation
and do
would be
it that way.
501 for research and education.
That would be my guess.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
how I would.
Otherwise, they would be getting
yeah.
bad advice and wasting all kinds of spending tax money they don't need to spend. Yeah. So it's all about these great trends in research, in the operation of universities, in the connection of research and the industrial society. In the case of the No Global Network of Research, I mean, this is a huge enterprise at some risk.
Yeah, it is.
So what's the next week on the SOWEST show? Okay, we'll find
Don't
out.
ask me. I don't know.
We'll find out.
We can find something.
It's something interesting.
There's lots of cool stuff
Cindy
going on at
Knappen will
SOAS.
tell us, and we'll publish that, and everybody will
Yeah.
know. I want to know everything about SOAS, don't you?
You know, I've been involved for a long time. I don't know everything about SOAS. There's so many wonderful things going on within the school.
What's your next project? And do you identify, do you divide your professional career into projects?
Somewhat. I mean, it depends. I'm probably going to be working with the ROV a bit in coming months.
The one that was rolled out a few weeks ago.
And we're still kind of in the testing phase of that vehicle. We have to get it working really well so that it can go out and do really good research too. So I think our next sea time for that will be in December, and then there'll be some more time in January and February with the ROV as well.
So in case I wanted to follow you around and find out what you're doing and learn about SOAS,
Hey,
where would I go?
I'm taking a school group out to the pier on Friday. You could come with us.
I would like to do that. Okay, thank you for mentioning that. How do they get in touch with you if they want to go to the pier on Friday?
Probably the best way is to find me on the Hurl website. A good vehicle to get there is to go to the SOAST website in general, www.soest, soest.hawaii.edu. Within there's links to all of the different departments within SOAST, including ours, Hurl, H-U-R-L. And
That's Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory.
Research Laboratory. Yeah. So, but I do offer tours to school groups on occasion, and they can find my email address on there, my phone number, and I'm more than happy to do it.
Good. Thank you, Rachel. That's
Thank you.
Rachel Orange. She's with Hurl, which is with SOAS, which is with Science. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Aloha. We'll look forward to more SOAS next week.